Traders, how you doing? Tom Willard. Welcome to another video update. It is Saturday, November 14th, 2020. Let's take a look at the markets, what things are looking like here on the SPYs and the Qs, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, as well as look at some great trading ideas. As I say all the time, there's tons of opportunity coming. Don't ever feel like you missed out. There's all sorts of things that are coming up. You just have to be in the moment of the market and realize that things are going to be moving. Now, some days obviously are more dynamic than others, but most of you, I'm directing this most towards swing traders because I've said this before, but I think everyone should learn how to swing trade and how to make money, how to make their money work for them in the longer term. Day trading, okay, that's more of a niche thing where people who do this for a living like myself can do that every day, day in and day out, and put forth the level of commitment that it requires. But to swing trade effectively, I think you still have to put in the time and the hours and the study. And the time to learn from your mistakes, realizing that none of us have a crystal ball, nothing is infallible. Uh, Patterns don't work out all the time, but having a plan and sticking to that plan, taking measurements on it, taking statistics on it, and then morphing as you need to accommodate the market. So there's a number of things. It's an ongoing process. It never ends, but that's what makes it fun, is because it's always a challenge, in my opinion, and it's always changing, and the opportunities are there, and the opportunities don't go away. They're constantly there. You may feel like you missed out on something such as Bitcoin, which I'm actually going to do a separate video on after this one, and I'll post it. But the opportunities are going to still be there. So hope you guys are doing well. We've had an interesting week in the markets. First off, if you look here on the charts, you got, again, as always, upper right's the longest time frame, the weekly. These are weekly bars. This is the daily bars chart, and then the 60-minute hourly chart, and then the 15-minute chart here. So these are the four I look at when I'm swing trading. These are my four primary ones. Here's the last week. So Monday we had this massive gap up, of which we basically almost had a huge down day off that open, which was a sucker gap. And actually, I got short in this gap and then took profits the next day on the SPYs. And it came down and it basically filled the gap the second day on Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just kind of oscillating in the same area. But notice, uptrend on the weekly, uptrend on the daily, uptrend on the 60, uptrend. It wasn't a little downtrend here on the 15 as it corrected here on these 3 days, but now forming an uptrend on the 15. Things look bullish in general. Okay, as you remember, I was short. I don't know if you, I can't remember if I did it in my video or if I tweeted about it, but I got short the market here. I got short actually the SPY right here. And when it was down here and it almost kissed 320, my target was 320, and it didn't hit it, so I held all of it. And then when it did this, I said that's fine. But this day here, when it gapped up, went down and went all the way back up and filled this gap, that was my key, and I got out of my position. So I ended up breaking even, actually losing, no, actually making just a sniff, a little bit of money. Now, I could have held to the next day because my stop is actually up in this area. You'll notice the next day with this wide range candle, it actually took out the stop, and I would have gotten officially stopped out the next day. Spider sense was tingling. I just needed to get out here and take, it sucks from being that profitable to breaking even or making just a little bit, but that's just, you got to let the charts follow you. You got to let the charts talk to you and help you make your decisions. So here's what it looked like, right? Got short, looked like a genius. Said, all right, guys, oh man, it hit, it came within a couple of bucks of my target. So that's the day I got out. Now, if I hadn't gotten out, which I may not have in previous instances, I would have definitely have gotten out here when my stop, this pivot point here, see it? Got taken out with this topping tail on this day. Now, this is the lesson why I'm sharing this with you, because you've got to follow your plan and take your stops. Now, if I didn't take my stop here, say I was still holding it, good Lord, the next day, and so then you say, okay, well, I'm going to go 2 stops back. Well, then it's here, and what happens? On this day here, on this gap up, everything gets taken out, and you get crushed, right? And usually the pain is so much that ironically, this is the day you actually cover, the worst day possible in regards to the next 3 days, when you could have gotten some money back. But then again, you get into the mindset, the psychology of, well, I want to break even at least at this point. And right now, it's not looking good. Okay, right now it looks like it wants to go higher. Now, does that mean we can't go down to 320? It's on my radar as a possibility, as this could be a failed type flag. But everything is uptrending right now. And it looks like we want to go higher. So right now, I'm leaning more long. And keeping in mind that if we get another big red day like this, breaking under 350, I think this thing can come down and start going down to challenge this support area. Maybe because this is a higher low on the daily chart, 320, about 322 here. Um, it may only come down to about 335, 340, and make another higher low and then continue higher. But right now the trend is up. The lean is to the long side, keeping in mind that with all the stuff going on, um, good Lord, in this country and around the world, anything can happen. So always be aware. That's why you have to have stops. Anything can happen. You have to have stops, whether you're going long or whether you're going short. Okay? There's my soapbox speech for today. So let's move to the actual approach. As I've mentioned here, which I actually just touched on, leaning more long in general. Qs, which is the NASDAQ, you'll notice it didn't, when on the Monday, it didn't gap up above everything else, but in general, it's been relatively strong to the SPY since the March debacle or move lower and this move back up. But right now, again, uptrending, wavering a little bit, uptrending. So everything's pretty much uptrending on this QQQ, although it's showing some relative weakness now all of a sudden to the SPY. Okay, so overall, leaning more long, but there's certain names you can go short on if you get your opportunities. One of the ones I'm short on right now is Tesla. I talked about this. One of my followers on Twitter was asking me about it. I suggested it here. But this one, when it came down and broke this low, notice the higher highs here. Higher high and then a lower low. And then it tried to make a higher high here. It kissed off a 450 and got kicked right back down and tested 400. I think if things are weak, and you see the relative weakness to the market anyway over the last few days, this thing could easily break through this 375 area if it falls lower. I think people got sucked in on the long side here. It's a really sloppy flag forming here, and this could mean it's going to go to 1,000 in the next couple years. Tesla is definitely in a strong uptrend on the weekly. It's wavering here on the daily. I think we're going to get a shakeout. I think longs are going to get shaken out under 375 or even 350 or even 325. Especially if things weaken in general in the market, which again they look more like they're going to go higher, but if they weaken, this is one to watch. I'm actually short this name right now, and my stop is right above 450, right above this pivot. So if it hits it, do you think I'm going to question? Do you think I'm going to go, well, no, maybe it's not. It's going to be different this time, and I'm not going to get out. I'm just going to see what happens. No, my stop gets hit, I get out. Right now I'm short this at 420, and if it gets up to 450, I'm out. Done. Move on to the next trade. Okay. So that's my plan. But Tesla's one I'm watching and I'm in short. If it breaks with force into 400, I may add to my position. And again, looking for a $50 to $75 run, possibly a $100 run. And again, if the market also in general smells bad and like it's going to maybe go retest that lower 335, 320 level on the SPYs. Okay. So there's the lesson for today. Now let's look at actual ideas to trade for the coming weeks. First up, I was tweeting about this on Friday. Window it had a massive update, and you can see it was up about 12 to 13% at one point, and then it ended up closing about break even, which is very bearish actually. But you look at the volume too. Look at the volume spike on this daily chart as compared to all these other here. And as I mentioned, I've been following this one for a while. Suggested it a while ago that on this big candle here on the weekly, that this thing looks like it wants to go higher. It wants to pull a big move to the top side. So that being the case, these topping tails are also pretty ominous. It's not a good sign. So let's see how this thing reacts come next week. Maybe not Monday. It's really thin in general. I mean, it did 414,000 shares on Friday, which is huge. But if you look at the normal days, let's see here. What did it do there? It did 94,000 there, 20,000 there, 32,000 there, 30,000 there. So it's not a very liquid stock. It's pretty low volume, and as I mentioned from the get-go, I think I have a position in this stock, but I would suggest people not buy I mean, it's cheap. It's $3-4 a share. You could buy a lot of shares. I suggest you don't buy that many shares simply because of the fact that it's pretty illiquid and you get trapped in this thing. If this thing decides to have a bad day to the downside, you're gonna have a hard time getting out and getting a decent price. On the same token, if this thing starts ripping and people start getting greedy with this thing, it can really run. So I'm holding my position, even though we've got this big bottoming move back down. Holding the position, watching the reaction. I think this thing goes higher. I think in general, you can see it's uptrending. It's breaking above the 200 period moving average. It found support at the 200 period moving average on the weekly chart. even though we had this big sell-off at the end of the day, volume-wise related to the rest of the day, it's pretty low compared to all the upticks here. Okay, so keep that in mind. But I'm looking forward this to go higher, and obviously my stop, because we always have stops. If this thing starts to fall apart, if you're more conservative, $3.20 area here, you can see the support in that area would be a stop area, or about 275 with a 200 period moving average, 280. Okay, which is considered as a dollar drop. That's a 30% drop from where it closed on Friday. But keep that in mind. Okay, so that's my approach on window, and I'm holding my core position in that right now and seeing if this thing can go higher, and it looks like it wants to. The only problem is these topping tails, which are a concern. So let's see how it reacts to this topping tail and see if we can go back up into that $4, $4.20, $4.40 area. Now, you notice in my last video a couple weeks ago, I talked about the pot stocks, and that they were ones I was in the CGC. I got stopped out, took my profits on it, and I said, now I'm considering buying them again. Well, sure enough, the buy hit. Been a great run. I'm still holding the majority of my position now, my new position in CGC, and I'm looking to buy more if it breaks above 25. You got a flag forming here off this move. You got a nice big move up into the clear blue yonder above here, above the 200 period moving average. It is extended. I could see it come back. The hard support area is around $21 a share here, where the top of this base was. That'd be a more ideal entry. But I'm looking to buy the flag over 25 with a stop at 22 on those shares. The stuff I bought back cheaper over here, I'll have a bigger stop on. But CGC looks higher. Tilray, I also mentioned in my last video. I didn't put a lot of long ideas, but these two were on it, and they really performed. This one's retraced more deeply than CGC. And you'll notice on the weekly chart, it broke out above and it came right back down. But now look, notice how it's settling in. So if it stabilizes here at around $8 a share, looking to add to my position above 8 and stop about $7 on those shares. And look here to the left, you got support around 7. So if it comes down back down in the $7 area, you can watch it, maybe nibble. But Tilray looks higher. The other pot stock I trade, and I actually don't have a position in this one right now. I have Tilray and CGC, but not this one. This one looks a lot more like Tilray, not quite as strong as CGC, kind of in between. A little stronger than Tilray, but not as strong as CGC. But I'm liking what I'm seeing here. It's consolidating pretty. It's trading in a lot more. What's the word I'm looking for? Stable manner. So I think a pop above 750 is worth buying, and a stop under 650 on this Cronos. Okay, keep that in mind. That it's trying to trend change here on the weekly. It has actually done it on the daily. You got crossovers here on the moving averages. I think this could have some more upside potential. So consider Cronos. I don't know how to pronounce that. Possible long. I'm not in this one right now. Looking to get into this one as well. All right, more expensive one here. IIPR came up on my scans. Like the uptrend on the weekly. Like the big move here and the flag forming on the daily chart. You consider this one about 159, 160 on the long side. Your stop's going to be about 150 right now, depending on how it oscillates in this area. You got a harder pivot around 144 here on this low. Let's see, where is that? 144.41. So about $144 a share here is your bigger stop. So it might not be ready yet. If it breaks 160 on Monday, I may not be buying in right away. I'm going to watch it. But IIPR definitely looks buyable with your setup. Watching it closely for a setup on the daily chart. Now this is one I have not owned, and actually I don't really day trade this one either very much. And I was scanning through my universe today and saw this one. I thought, you know what, this looks interesting. Now you see it's still buried under the on the 200 period moving average on the weekly chart. It's still buried underneath it. But I like this constructive behavior I'm seeing here on this weekly chart, and the daily chart is uptrending at this point. You've got a flag forming here, right? It's wide and loose. So you're looking at entering at about $146 a share, stopping it at 140. I like it. It's here at a resistance level, but it's from early 2020. So about a year, almost, 10, 11 months ago is where it topped out in this area before it sold off like everything else and has worked its way back up. Ideally, we may get a longer base here. It may go the following week of Thanksgiving, the week after. But consider this one. I'm watching this as a long. Baidu over about 146, stop about 140. And your target's going to be the flat 200 period moving average, about $170 a share, let's just say. And, of course, watching the market week to week. The market starts collapsing oftentimes it drags a lot of these other ones with them. So keep that in mind. But right now, just from a technical perspective, that's where I'm looking to put my target if and only if I get into this trade. And just to give you an idea. Codexis, I like this one. It's sold off like everything else, and it's working its way back up. But look at the daily chart here, uptrending. You've got the 200 period is still going down. It's still got to roll around, but you've got a strong move up here in the 20-40 period moving averages. You've got a daily chart that's come down, it pulled back, nice move, and guess what? Perfect flagpole forming and a flag. Trigger point is probably around 1590-ish, the high 15s. Stop under the high 14s. You got about a dollar stop on this thing. I think it goes to revisit. Your target's going to be around that $18 area, $18 and $19 area on Codexis. So watch this for a possible flag long setup on the daily chart. Peloton. Okay, so this one, if you've been following my videos, I've been in this long forever, and I was actually a buddy of mine was texting me during the market, asked me what to do with it. And I told him I completely bailed on Peloton, took all my profits, got no shares in this stock right now. But now I'm eyeing it up again. I'm looking at a double tap type entry. We got a pretty strong move up here with a topping tail on the daily chart, and then it got crushed here. A couple of bottoming tails showing nice support in this $95 area. You had to move back up. It peaked above these three bars, sucking people in. I think we need another double tap, meaning it's going to take out the stop area about 95. And that's where I'm looking to get in. Around $90 a share is what I'm looking at. Putting a small nibble order at 90. Maybe if we get down to 80, we'll see. And again, it depends on what the market does. The market starts ripping on, starts putting in a high gear to the top side. This thing reverses. I may buy it at 110 on the reversal off this red bar at 110, and then your stop is really right under 100. So two approaches on this. One, if the market starts ripping, look to get into this if it can get up over this red bar and this topping tail. Otherwise, I want to see it sell off, take out these longs, shake them out, and look to buy it at around $90 a share. You'll see here to the left, I mean, you've got a nice little support area here between 90 and or 180. The bottom of it's probably about 70 to 80, 75 to 80. So that's where I'm looking at the lowest point, and that would be my stop point if and when I got in this thing around 90, 85, $90 a share. So just keeping it on watch right now. I don't have a trigger point. Again, if things go crazy, buck wild to the top side, early in the week, things look really bullish. I may front run this thing and get on the more aggressive move above a move around 110 to 113 a share on Peloton. All right, PAGS here is worth looking at as well. You can see it. It's come right back up here, basically a kind of a double bottom, and it's flagging here right at previous highs around $45 a share. I think a breakout of about $45.50 to $46 a share under the flag with a stop at 42 area is worthwhile. So watch PAGS for a breakout here above on the long side. TTEC Holdings. Coming off all-time highs here on the weekly chart. You can see it pulled back off this red flag pole, kind of a cup with a handle breakout. This would be the second breakout past this or after this new high. Definitely buyable. Watch T-Tech over about 60. What is it? 63.60. So $64 a share. You got a real topping tail of 65. So right in that there 64, 65 areas your entry. And your conservative stops around $60 a share, or if you want to give it a little bit more space, I'd say about $58.80 underneath these bottoming tails right here on the daily chart. Last, I want to talk about some transportation type stocks and the short squeeze that happened with the vaccine news allegedly. I mean, the bottom line is anyone short on these names, Uber, Lyft, have been getting crushed. Look at this big move up. I think there's upside here. You can see the flagpole. I mean, it's extended, but you may get another 50, a run to 50 at least on this thing. So consider Uber if you're aggressive at 48, stop about 45. Lyft, good Lord, the short squeezes are the shorts are getting crushed here on this pop up. Again, kind of you can see kind of a base here happening. 38 with a stop at 34. Looking for a break past this pivot point here at 40. It's definitely relatively weak to Uber, but I think definitely worth watching. Let's look at the cruise lines, RCL. Same thing, man. Thing popped up, topping tailed out. A lot of people that are short put their stops there in that area, got hammered. Now your first pullback off that new recent high. I think this is buyable. I think there's more pain for the shorts coming. watch it. Okay, but at the same time, have a stop. So, for example, say I wanted to get long RCL. Well, here's my approach. I would buy it over 71.12. So say Monday it opens up at 71, and usually I don't buy anything swing wise in the first half an hour the market's open because it's usually pretty erratic. And once that gets settled in, then I'll go do it because you figure if you're swing trading, you got to have a little bit of leeway and room. So say it enters whatever my entry point is. Say it's 71.20 on Monday. So I get in. My stop is going to be right there at 67.67, right under the low of this candle. So if it turns around and takes me out, I am going to get out, okay? Because I have seen this. You can go through all sorts of charts. There's all sorts of charts that have been downtrending, and what happens is they'll set up to go continue their short trend, and then they'll have a day like this where it pops up, and it takes people out on the short side, and people on the long side or the bullish side, hey, I start buying it like crazy, and what happens is this thing melts and just goes lower. Look through a bunch of charts. You can see it happen day after day. Don't get sucked in. Just because we got a recent new high, my initial approach is this is going to go higher, but I have a stop. And if it breaks down, and again, the market, remember, we're talking about the markets too. If the markets start to roll over hard, and some of these names that got this big bump, the entertainment stocks and the travel stocks, they got this big bump from this vaccine news, allegedly. Start to roll over, man, get short because you're going to see new lows. A lot of times it'll come crashing down hard or at least fill this gap. So that kind of is an insight into how I approach these. So you say, well, Tom, you're saying lean long on this, but then you're telling me you might go short. Yeah, I might be short full on this thing on Tuesday, depending on what happens, okay? But right now, Saturday, leading up to the week, looking at the charts, my lean is to the long side. I think there's going to be more pain for the shorts unless the shorts just got run. They just got stopped out. And a lot of times that's what happens is they get run, clears the decks, and makes it a lot easier for these things to collapse and fall lower. Okay? Same thing on the long side. You get stuff shaking out hard to the downside, and then boom, that's the low. Things start coming up like crazy. Think of March. Think of the end of March this year. What happened? When everyone threw their hands up, says, that's it, I'm done, I'm cashing out. And that's when things started going up and up and up and up. Same type of process here. I think this thing is going to go higher, but I may be short on Tuesday if the behavior in the market and as well as a lot of this with sister stocks. I mean, look at CCL. See the big gap on CCL. Good Lord, the airlines, UAL, right? I mean, it's like mirrors. Love, Dow, AAL. I mean, they're all there. Let's look at the gaming stocks. MGM, very similar, but it had a big strong day on Friday. Let's look at Las Vegas Sands. Very similar. Look at it. I mean, we've seen it everywhere, right? Win. Okay? So keep that in mind. But all these, because of that gap, because of the penetration into the pivot areas above, grease the tracks for a long side bias. So that's my bias. However, you got to be dynamic in this game. You got to make if the charts start telling you different things, don't be afraid to take advantage of this, or and at least follow your plan. So say you can't switch. Say you can't go from long to short like I can in the blink of an eye. My setup is there, or my setup isn't there. Just at least take your stops. Protect yourself. Have a stop and get the hell out of Dodge if your stop is hit. Don't ask questions. Don't say, well, it's different this time. Don't add to your position. Follow your plan. That's going to keep you safe. It's going to keep that cash in your account, and then you can reassess when you're out of position. And again, I say this almost every week. How much is the commission nowadays? Virtually nothing, right? So just get the hell out. Sell your 100 shares, your 1,000 shares, or whatever it is you have, and you can buy it back. Guess what? For pennies, if that. The next day, if you feel like, no, I was a little rash in my decision, I'm going to get back in. Doesn't cost you nothing. Get back in. Okay. All right, guys. That's it for this week. A lot of opportunity out there, a lot of information in this video, a lot of ideas to look at. Trade well, trade to your plan, follow your plan, keep your eyes open, wake up every morning, get in front of that market and say, hey, man, now is the best opportunity in my life to increase my wealth, to make an income from this living. Come with that approach and stay with it, work hard, and, man, the sky's the limit. All right, guys, have a great rest of your weekend. Until next time, hit me up with an email if you have any questions, tom@tomwillertrading.com, or you can just comment on the video or tweet me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I get a chance. Have a good one.